We have a whole platter, a smorgasbord of issues that we're going to tackle today in the unfolding currency of events. CPP-NPA.
You know, the problem of our armed forces with regards to the CPP-NPA is the fact that if indeed an agreement is reached and signed by both parties, what is the assurance that there will not be groups of so-called breakaway factions of the NPA that will continue
The fight.
the armed struggle?
Even before we reach the point of the ink drying on the peace agreement, no, the president has made demands. No more a ceasefire. Is asking for a stop to the revolutionary taxes, the ambushes on people. Is that doable? Is that doable for the CPP-NPA?
That's a fair demand made by the president, but I don't think the NPA in the various provinces will obey any
Preconditions.
order to such to obey such matters from even coming from Utrecht. I think the different NPA bands in the different provinces are already somewhat independent, no longer obeying any orders from Utrecht.
These preconditions, therefore, will really make the peace talks pointless. It's useless.
Yes, as long as the president is firm on that demand. But if he makes a sudden turnaround, then all of a sudden the peace talks will restart.
Okay. Let's go now to the impeachment of Chief Justice Sereno. Your thoughts on this? What do you think, where this will go? Do you think this will prosper in the House of Representatives and eventually will be tried in the Senate?
I think so. I think because it's a numbers game.
Okay.
So if the president is really intent on having Sereno replaced, then I think the House will support the president and file the impeachment case in the Senate. But as you know, I'm not a great fan of Chief Justice Sereno. But for the sake of checks and balances, it is my humble opinion that we should leave the Chief Justiceship with Sereno.
Nobody can take her place? I mean, just in case she is impeached?
Because a replacement would be viewed as one who will kowtow to all the demands of the executive department. And that will not bode well for us because we all know that BBL will reach the Supreme Court later on. The framework agreement on the Bangsamoro is still pending. The constitutionality of that agreement is still pending in the Supreme Court. And if the executive department is pro-BBL, pro-federalism, and pro-framework agreement, then if we have a Supreme Court that is kowtowing to the executive, that will be dangerous for our republic.
You're talking of a weakened Supreme Court, therefore?
Yes.
Okay, let's go now to the Catalan independence and Kurdistan. What your thoughts on this, and what's the relevance of this to the Philippines?
This is very relevant, no? Because in the constitution of the Iraqi Federation and in the constitution of Spain, remember, Catalan is not a federal state. It is merely an autonomous region.
Yes, yes.
Spain is not a federal, has not adopted the federal form of government. It has provinces. It does not have states. It has autonomous regions, just like the Philippines. And there are prohibitions in the Iraqi constitution and the Spanish constitution against secession.
Okay.
But despite of these prohibitions, the Kurdistan state government and the Catalan autonomous region went ahead and conducted
their own
referenda without any authority from the
national
central government.
Yes, yes.
and citing the articles of the United Nations which says that all peoples have the right to self-determination. And this is what I have been telling all along, that especially in a federal system,
Yes.
there is an inherent right to secede.
Uh-huh.
Even if you put in the Constitution that secession is prohibited, there is no stopping a state from having a referendum and probably using a biased counter of the votes to say that the yes votes won, even though the no votes actually won. And then, what if a foreign power recognizes that independence? Let's say Russia or America or China or Britain or Malaysia, then we would have lost a big part of our territory. This already happened in Crimea.
Okay, we'll go to Crimea. How do you argue the point of view by the Catalans and, well, I don't know, some people who think that they're Moros and not Filipino Muslims, that from the central government, they would be looked at as a rogue state. But from their own perspective, they will be nationalist, seeking for their own homeland. How do you counter that?
I think, first of all, if you are really nationalist, you will not seek the destruction of the country. You will recognize the fact that a bigger country is better than a smaller country. In terms of defense, in terms of finance, in terms of raising taxes.
Especially when you see all the possible threats, no, all around the Philippines.
Yes, that's why without standing threat with our neighbor, Malaysia, we should not put our country in danger. We should put our country far away from danger as much as possible, because if we adopt federalism, we will be putting our country nearer to danger.
They say that federalism will create the peace. BBL, federalism, so that the Moro heartland will no longer seek for independence.
You know, we should look far ahead into the future. Maybe now, with the present crop of leaders of the MALF, they will not go for
independence,
full, secession or independence.
Yes.
But will they live forever?
Yes. There'll be a new crop of leaders.
Yes, generation after generation will come, and there will come a time that they will seek for independence. So that's a possibility. So when we make a constitution, we should not make it for this generation alone. We should think far ahead. That's why there was a civil war in America itself.
Yes, I understand.
When the southern states exercised their inherent right for independence and self-determination.
So they created the Confederation on their own.
Yes, and the President of the United States, Lincoln, did not recognize that inherent right. What happened? It resulted to a bloody civil war.
Yes.
So we should think of those things, and let's not say that it is impossible to happen to us. It already happened in the United States, and what will prevent it from happening in the Philippines in the future? So we have to think very deeply, far ahead into the future.
Some people and some legal minds, legal eagles say, oh, we will put one provision, two provisions. How many provisions do you need that will state that you cannot leave the federal state or the federal union of the Philippines?
Even if you put 1 million provisions prohibiting the secession of a state, those provisions are useless, because all I have to do, if I were in the part of the secessionists, is to conduct a peaceful referendum, or make sure that the yes wins.
Or get support from a foreign government and be funded with arms again.
That's the number one. I will ask Britain and Malaysia to immediately recognize. Once I declare independence, they will immediately recognize the independence of my new republic, and I will ask Britain to exercise its influence over the United States, so that the U.S. will also recognize my new republic. Now, what happens if two permanent members of the United Nations already recognizes the independence of that new republic, including a powerful member of ASEAN? then we would have lost a big chunk of our territory. And remember that
And we are not ready to fight
how can we fight?
against these two individuals already have
Just in
supported.
Marawi alone, it already took us several months.
Exactly.
So do we even have a self-reliance defense program?
Ferdy, do you think we even have the conviction to fight a long war in order to preserve the territory of the Philippines? I mean, without Mindanao being amputated, if in case it gets to that. Can we even do it? Or do we say, let's just give it to them because it's theirs?
Yeah, I seriously doubt the present capacity of the Republic to wage a fight like that. No? So that's why I keep on saying that we should get our country far, far away from danger as much as possible instead of gambling. We will say, we will try to convince the people, no, they will not do it. But what is the assurance that they will not do it?
We're gambling with our futures and the fortunes of the Republic, no?
And also our children and,
Yes.
and our children's children.
Uh-huh.
When a war breaks out, who will suffer
Uh-huh.
in the future? Our children and our children's children. Do we want them to fight a bloody civil war like what happened in the American Civil War? Remember, during the American Civil War,
These were Americans against Americans.
yes, the number of deaths, if you total it,
Uh-huh.
and you compare it with the number of deaths of all the wars, foreign wars of America, the number of those who died during the American Civil War is higher than all the wars, the foreign wars of America.
And yet legally, if you talk about a federal state, you're actually granting it sovereign rights. Meaning, they have the power to say, we join you, and when we don't want to be part of this union, we can separate from you, we can form our own confederation, which is what
Yes,
happened.
Yes, because in a federal system, there is that inherent right of every state to secede.
Its sovereignty is there. It's
Yes.
vested within that state.
And what's funny is that you federalize to get bigger.
Yes.
You don't federalize to subdivide your country into smaller territories.
Yes, yes.
That is the exact reverse of federalism. That's why I'm surprised
The-
why
the-
they are calling it federalism.
Simple question. Will it weaken us or will it strengthen us as a country?
Of course, it will weaken us.
Together we are stronger, that's what you're saying.
Yes, especially even in the economic field, it will weaken us because the economies of scale will be lost and it will entail more expenses on the part of the government because you will be adding new layers of bureaucracy.
Or is it like Catalan, where you have leaders in southern Mindanao thinking we will be the new president or the new leader of this new country? That's why they're pushing for it, under the guise and under the flag of a homeland or a Moroland.
That's
Do you
the-
think that's the motive also?
Maybe it's not impossible that is their motive, and that's very sad, no? Because we should put our country first rather than our ambitions.
Okay. We're going to pause for our final reminder, and then we'll focus on the EJ case, customs, drugs, also coming from China. We'll talk about the popularity survey of the president, the barangay elections postponed, fake news, etc., etc. when we return.